This is She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. Your host, Kinsey Roberts, interviews incredible women in the wedding industry who are making their mark and creating success on their terms. Join the conversation.
Hey guys, happy Thursday. Welcome to episode 41 of She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. This is your host, Kinsey Roberts, and today I am so happy to welcome Brooke Saxon-Spencer from Belong Magazine. She's the founder and editor over there. We are going to talk about a couple of things today that I'm excited about. The first is her journey into becoming the creator and the founder of Belong Magazine and what that looks like and what it's really like behind the scenes of the magazine. And then the second part of the interview, we get into the special weddings and celebrations issue she is putting out this summer, 2017. It's really exciting. She tells us all about what she's looking for, how you can submit to the magazine if you would like to, if that's something you're interested in, and all of the things that she's looking for that issue specifically. She talks about how it's really more directed towards weddings as a business, so just like this podcast, and not so much towards brides. So keep that in mind as you listen to the interview. She's so wonderful. Her and I are going to be at the Together Experience next week, so I'm really looking forward to meeting her in person. Before we get to the interview, I want to thank today's sponsors, the Wedding Business Academy, hosted by Ginny Kraus and Kristen Kaplan. The Wedding Business Academy is a 6-month group coaching program where you will mastermind, learn, and grow your business in 2017. It's a wonderful program. We did an episode last week on February 9th where Ginny and Kristen they answered every single question that I threw out them about the Wedding Business Academy, so that if you were listening and you were interested in hearing more, you can really know what the program is going to be like, because it's an investment, right? It's an investment in yourself and it's an investment in your business. And I think it's important to truly understand the amazing growth that you would get out of a 6-month group coaching program like the Wedding Business Academy. So if you are interested in learning more, the doors open to the course today, I believe. Today or tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday, February 16th. I believe it's Friday. Don't quote me on that. If you'd like to know for sure, go to theweddingbusinessacademy.com. Kristen and Ginny will give you all the information over there. And thank you to them for being such gracious sponsors all month. I have thoroughly enjoyed having you, and I cannot wait to see what you do with the Wedding Business Academy in 2017. Without further ado, let's go to the show with Brooke Saxon-Spencer from Belong Magazine. Brooke, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You are welcome. I was just telling Brooke offline, you guys, that I'm so excited to dig into this special weddings and celebrations issue. As like me, I'm sure you're obsessed with Belong Magazine. I have all issues. I'm looking at them right now. So I'm looking forward to chatting with you and kind of getting the behind the scenes. This feels like a real pleasure and a real treat for me. So
thanks.
You're welcome. Brooke, I gave everyone your professional bio there at the top of the show, but I would love for you to briefly, in your own words, tell us really who you are and how you're involved with the creative entrepreneurial community.
Well, I have spent many years in the healthcare industry. Mm-hmm. So being able to kind of jump into the creative entrepreneurial community has been just wonderful for me because I feel like that's more my niche. And I think that there is just such a need for ways to connect women in that community. And there's just so much online that you don't know where to go half the time. And so sometimes it's nice to have somebody curate content for you. And if, a lot of creatives are like me in that they like to have something physical in their hands that's pretty and nice and, fun to look at. So, the idea was to provide a resource that would not only allow women to share their expertise, but also for others to learn from. I still work in healthcare. It's what's paying the bills. So I will continue doing that until Belong gets to a point where it's sustaining itself. So I am part of the creative entrepreneurial community as far as that's concerned, right? Like I'm right there alongside of everybody else, starting a business and trying to grow a business and facing all of those challenges and things along the way as well. So not only, I feel like I kind of come at it from more than one angle, but can certainly relate to where a lot of women are at in their journey.
Absolutely. I've had quite a few people on the show who are working their traditional job along with their creative endeavor or their wedding business, and we all agree that there's so much. There can be a lot of messages out there like quit your 9 to 5 tomorrow. Or like hustle, for the next 90 days and quit, when in fact that's not always the best decision, because it is paying the bills, and honestly that feels good to me. Like that, I feel like I would rather have that peace of mind than to kind of jump into a situation that I wasn't ready for.
Right. Yeah, it is a tough balance as far as kind of trying to figure it out. And I think, unfortunately for me at the moment, I'm a little overwhelmed, to be completely honest. You get to that point where you're kind of like, okay, how do you balance it all? Like, that's a question that, I think every female who has her own business, says, how, especially if you're working, a regular 9 to 5 job, like how do you balance it all? And then family and all of those other responsibilities without completely losing your mind.
Yes.
And it's a challenge. It's hard. And, it's hard for no other reason than just like having your focus scattered is not productive.
That's right. Honestly, how are you doing it? Like what is your day? How are you doing this? Because you have a busy, important 9 to 5 job, and this magazine, to me, seems like it's a beast. Like from the outside looking in, it's everywhere. So how are you doing that?
It's a lot of time, in all honesty.
Yeah.
So thankfully, my 9 to 5 is no longer 9 to 5, and it's now a consulting basis, which is good and bad because, as you were saying before, it's not regular, steady, and able to be counted on in the same way that like a salary position would be. So I feel like I'm kind of working the entrepreneurial side on 2 different aspects of my life now, which is a bit different. And that kind of comes out of how Belong even got started, as far as my 9 to 5 ended when my family sold our family business, which was completely unexpected for me. I thought that I would always have it. It was like my security. I enjoyed what I was doing. It gave me freedom and flexibility to, be around for my kids. And I felt like the rug kind of got pulled out from under me. And I was like, well, crap, what am I going to do? And then I was like, but I don't like healthcare. Like, no offense to those that work in healthcare, but I went to school for photography, graphic design, and creative writing. I don't want to go work for someone else in healthcare, because the only reason I got into it was because of my family, and because it kind of just morphed out of college. I needed a job, and there was a marketing position open. I thought I'd give it a whirl. And 18 years later, here we are. It's just, that's, how things go. And I had a passion for it because it was my family's thing, not because of the nature of the actual business. So, I had that moment where I was like, okay, well, do I reinvent myself? What, do I go start working for someone else? Like, what, I kind of get to choose a little bit here. And so I just spent a lot of time reflecting, and that's kind of where Belong came from. And while I was working like in the office, day after day, I really was missing that creative outlet, and tried to blog on several different occasions, tried different approaches, craft party, personal, like all, but I felt like they were all such flops because, you can't just you can't have community by just throwing yourself online, like by putting up a blog, or like it takes more work than that. You actually have to engage with other people. And so I, was frustrated because I couldn't figure out where my place was. Like, where are my people here? Like, I don't know where to go to find them. I just was really frustrated and gave up. And so in this time that I was kind of reflecting on what I wanted to do next with my life, it was sort of like, okay, well, what problems have I, the whole, what is a problem and what is the solution? And I just felt like I can't be the only one that, that feels lost when it comes to the internet. And I can't be the only one who wants to find a place. And there's so many different places and ways to get plugged in. How do you know what one is right for you? Like, how do you find them?
That's right.
And so the idea of the word belong had sort of been in my mind for years, as something that like was kind of pressing on me as like an important concept. And so it just made sense. And actually, originally, the magazine was just for bloggers, and Belong has the word blog in it. So it like totally worked. But then I quickly realized that, the world of blogging was actually much larger and really included, it starts to include social media, all social media, because now that's blogging. And then you get into how so many bloggers are entrepreneurs, and it was really appealing to that community. So, we altered our course just a smidge, which I think was a good thing to do. And yeah, so I'm doing, it is a lot of work. I have, you find contributors, and, you have to like plan out each issue. And it sounds super easy. Like, oh yeah, well, you just say this person's going to do this, you line it up. Well, then you have to have all the agreements, and then you have to make sure everybody knows their deadline, and then who's going to shoot images or who's going to provide images for that. And then they have to sign off on it. And, it just seems like it's always kind of this whirlwind. And then there's the advertising piece, which is so not my game, and I'm terrible at it. And it's one of the reasons that I think we're having slow growth as far as on the financial side, is because it's just not my area of expertise.
Are you the one doing most of the doing the most of the sales for advertising components of Belong?
So, the only other person that does any paid work for Belong is the designer.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so it's just you and this designer doing paid work. Well, you're kind of doing unpaid work too.
Exactly. So thankfully I have like a college student who is interning in quotes, and she helps kind of like wrangle up, gets the blog content and plugs that in for me. But it's still all me. My hands are on everything. So I feel a little scattered, because I'm like, oh wait, I have to do advertising. Oh wait, I need to contact that contributor for like 3 issues from now. And, once you it's all good and fine. The first issue, you're like, okay, we got it. And then you realize, oh my goodness, like the more you get into it, you have to plan further and further out, which is fine. It's good. Like, I'm so excited that I get to plan further out, because people are enjoying the magazine and there's people that want to contribute, and it's a great thing, but it is a lot of work. It's just a lot of details and behind the scenes, and trying to grow the community at the same time is a challenge, because, as one person, you can only do so much. So, yeah, at some point we hope to see that, the tables turn just a smidge and actually do some more like real life things. But, typical day is me sitting at home and at my desk, probably looking a little bit frazzled and confused, trying to figure out what exactly I should be working on at any given moment. Like there's crap everywhere. Totally. And I'm like, okay, what has to get done right now? So yeah, it's not pretty, but it is what it is.
But it's working. I mean, for us as the consumers of Belong, I feel like it's totally working, because every quarter or whatever, I get this new beautiful magazine, and I'm like, oh, look how beautiful it is. It's so perfect. Well, okay, so let me kind of like wrap up this timeline a little bit for our listeners, so that we're all on the same page. It sounds like, and tell me if I'm off base here, but it sounds like you were working for a family business, and during this time, and this business was in healthcare, and during that work, did you start some of those blogs and other projects? Yes. Okay, great. And those didn't work out. You were feeling lost, not really a ton of community. And then Belong, that business was sold, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then was Belong after that business was sold, or did that come before the business was sold?
I had some warning about a year, because of the nature of the kind of sale that it was. Sure. I knew I had a year. Okay. And so I started developing Belong into a magazine about, with some time to spare, as far as having, having that day job. But yeah, so they one ended while the other one was beginning. So they did happen at the same time, for a bit. Yeah.
And do you feel like, would it be accurate to say, or correct me if I'm wrong, do you feel like you started Belong for multiple reasons, such as, of course, community, and I think connecting with other creatives and other entrepreneurial women, but also as an additional income? Was that a thought, or was it completely community?
No, definitely. I mean, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, I love it.
It was, definitely a way to earn an income.
Yes.
I would, just like everyone else in the creative, industry, you want to be able to take your passions and monetize them, and not in an ugly way, but like make something that's of value and helping people, and, but being able to support your family with that at the same time. So yeah, that was definitely the goal. And still is. It's just taking a lot longer than I had hoped it would. And I'm being totally unrealistic as far as timelines, because, you look at all the studies that say, how long it actually takes most small businesses to kind of get their footing.
Yeah.
I've only been doing this for a year and a half, and the magazine's breaking even. Like, I should be pretty happy about that, right? Like,
that's amazing.
So, and it's, because it's a little different than, a wedding photographer where, you do have to get, you have to buy all the equipment and then pay off the equipment. But there's, like, with this, there's ongoing expenses of having to print, and print is not cheap. So it is, that's my goal. My goal is for it to be the only thing that I have to focus on, because I think that we are, we're more effective and efficient, or I am more effective and efficient when I don't have to focus on 20 million different things. And there are 20 million things just with Belong alone. But to not feel spread thin as far as like which job I'm supposed to be doing at which time, that'd be ideal.
Absolutely.
But things aren't always ideal. So reality is what it is. And, we deal with it.
I have a question. What does it look like? I mean, you said you're planning far in advance, and we're actually going to talk about the weddings and celebrations issues, even not coming out until the beginning of May 2017. And as we record this, it's January 23rd. So that's fairly far out. So could you kind of take me through, you don't have to go into like the real nitty gritty, but can you kind of take me through your planning process and really what, as the editor in chief, like what does it look like in a publishing schedule from like the idea of that specific issue to, getting it in our hands?
So for the weddings issue, and any issue really, I work backwards as far as when it needs to be released. And, the longer that I've been doing this, the more time I realized I actually need, as far as between getting everything and going to print. Like, I need more time to work with, with what we have, instead of cutting it where like we get all the content and then we have like a week to put it all together. So for example, the next issue that's coming out, issue 7, it comes out at the end of March. I set the date March 23rd. And so the copy deadline, for the contributors is February 1st. Which is actually cutting it really close, because then we have to quick throw it all together. It takes 2 weeks once it's sent to the printer for it to get to me.
Oh, wow.
And then I have to go and turn around and ship it to the distributor. So, like, it's just a lot of different steps. And you're like, wow, there's a lot of, or in one case, I actually drive it to one of the distributors because it's within 20 minutes and it saves a lot of money to drive it as opposed to shipping it, 10 miles. But yeah, so, I kind of work backwards, and the more, the further in we get, the more I'm like, wow, I need to be like bumping these deadlines earlier than I really think that they need to be set. So for the weddings issue, that deadline is, I think, in mid-March, which is still cutting it kind of close, but it'll give us, a couple of weeks to pull together the design, and we pretty much have an idea of the layout prior to getting all the content, which is great. So it's just kind of plugging things in and choosing which images we want to use, and, and some of the details like that. But yeah, then, editing, reviewing it and getting it off to the printer. That 2-week span where it's at the printer is just like killer. You're just sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so most of the time is spent getting content, really, and interacting with people and plugging things in. And it's so funny. It doesn't sound like it would be all that much work, but there's it just seems like a lot of communication that goes along with that.
To me, it sounds like a lot of work. That's a lot, just the communication piece of contributors, because the magazine is a good size magazine. It's not like almost 10 pages.
Yeah, it's usually about 110 pages, and it's like 95 content,
which I love.
Which, is great for the readership because it's just jam packed. My husband often tells me, he's like, you have too much content. There's too much in there. Like, you look at other magazines and that's not what it looks like. They don't have nearly the content that you do. But it's important to me to make it a valuable resource, and to give opportunities to women in kind of all stages of their journey as creatives and entrepreneurs to share their expertise and some of their story to some degree. So I feel like, it's nice to have the extra space that maybe a standard, publication wouldn't have.
I agree. I find a lot of value in the content, and it's nice to get that much information. I read them over and over again. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't just kind of put them away like, okay, that was nice. I continue to kind of refer back, which I appreciate. I'm wondering, as you're now, 18 months into this journey, are you still seeking out contributors more than they're coming to you? What's that balance look like? They're
pretty much coming to me.
Nice.
We have a lot of people that do send stuff and submit through our online, link, which is really helpful. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I don't get back to people as fast as they'd like because I'm not checking it every day. I'm checking it like once every week or two, mm-hmm. Kind of as needs arise and whatnot. Occasionally I'll reach out to certain individuals maybe that I have had contact with that I think would be really ideally suited for any given topic. But yeah, for the most part, there's always people pitching something, which is great. And the hard part for me is telling people no. Sure. I don't want to be discouraging, but there are a lot of small indie magazines out there. Ours definitely, Belong is geared towards, the blogger, the woman who's, active in social media, and the entrepreneur. So like, if it doesn't have to do with that, it doesn't really have a place in the magazine. So, telling, stories about, like your marriage or whatever, it's just not the right place for that. Unless it relates to entrepreneurship. But then we also have to look at the audience, right? How many of our audience members, I think only half of them are married. Right. So is that an ideal topic that, most of the readership is going to get something out of? So it's not always a personal thing, but some things just aren't appropriate in the sense that they're not the best fit. So I try to encourage people to seek out some of these other smaller publications that I know would be better for those. But yeah, it's nice to have people throwing in content, and I always have, I can share tips with you on what catches my attention and what doesn't. And every editor I think has their own kind of routine and what they prefer. And I of course have mine, but yeah, I can always share tips on what we're really looking for.
That would be great. And do you mind? Let's do that now. Do you mind if we do that as it relates to this special issue, this weddings and celebration issue? Cool. Let's do that.
We're looking for. So the reason that we came up with this issue is because I found that there are a lot of women in this readership who are in that industry. Mm-hmm. They're wedding photographers, they're event planners. Whatever, like they're graphic designers who do invitations, they're calligraphers, or hand lettering artists. I'm not sure what you call them all anymore because they're not all calligraphers, but there's a pretty dense population of those women. And I thought that this would be great because I don't know that weddings necessarily look like they have a place in our normal day-to-day issues. Like having a wedding in there would look kind of funny. Unless it was specifically, about certain photography, something. But so it seemed to me that having an issue that was geared towards entrepreneurs in that space. And again, it's not a weddings and celebrations issue for brides. Right. It's for the industry, right? Like in the sense that it's for the female entrepreneur who's kind of in that space and, looking for that kind of community. Right. So that's kind of where it came from. And then as far as as far as having someone submit something to me to get in, there's a few things that we are always looking for. And one is we're looking for content that represents the community, the creative community as it truly is, and in its diversity, whether it be age, or whether it be race, or whether it be and when it comes to weddings, whether it be same-sex couples or whatnot, like we're looking to kind of be sure that that everyone has a place to belong. So we try to be really diligent about, I don't want to say inclusivity, because that almost sounds like I don't think anybody can fully achieve that, but I try to be really aware of that. So having something that, that is definitely, helping demonstrate that it's not all just, the white population like you normally would see is really helpful, because I think it better reflects the community that we're trying to achieve with Belong. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is it make it specific. If you're looking to submit a topic that's more business related, make it specific. So, and do yourself a favor and look through at least the table of contents of some of the previous issues, because I really, it's never good to submit an idea that's already been in a magazine, because it just kind of shows me that you don't really care, because I'm more apt to want to include someone who has been an active part of the community, and contributed and been part of, has read the magazine, knows what it's all about and such. So getting repeat, submission ideas is kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
But I love specifics. So, and think of what you would want to read. Would you want to read like the story of how I made, how I took pictures at my first wedding, or would you like, 3 tips for the new photographer? Or
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? You like think of something that's a little catchier, maybe that you wouldn't normally see, but people like the how-tos, people like the action. They do like the inspiration, and that kind of comes in when you're showing them your events. And what, looking for there is like I said, some diversity, but also just stuff that's fresh. Not all pastels. Like have there been weddings that have been a little bit more non-traditional looking that would be fun to feature and showcase? It is we focus a lot on creativity and the creatives, and it's always fun to see something that's a little different. So and also in the submission, when you go through the form for us, which is on our website, include the actual hyperlink so that I don't have to go typing things in, because I'm not likely to do it. So the less work I have to do, the more likely it is that I'll look at your stuff.
Smart.
So like for Instagram, like don't just put @belongmag, put the hyperlink in there, because then I can click on it and I don't, like I can go right there and peek right away. So, the less work it is for me, the more likely it is that I'll take a peek and that there'll be, some interest. And the other thing, just to try to stay encouraging, is that a lot of people whom we may not feel is the best fit for that issue or for an issue of the magazine, we are often looking for blog content that lines up with just audience wants. It might not fit with the theme of a certain magazine, but it's still really good, solid information, and we'll ask them to do a blog post instead. So, just because it didn't make it in the magazine doesn't mean you're out. It doesn't mean you can't submit again either. But yeah, so I would say, come at something specific and, do the hyperlinks, make it easy. That's super helpful. So, and you kind of know what's been done so that you're not suggesting a repeat, because that just, that's just not going to go anywhere.
Absolutely. Well, and I feel it is. And I really feel the same about the podcast. If somebody submits an idea to be a guest, like recently I've had a lot of people who are like, oh, I'd like to talk about my book. Well, I really recently did an episode about publishing a book. And so I'm like, gosh, that was only like 3 episodes ago. I wish you would know that I already did that.
And it's the same with, like I was saying, that's the same with anyone that submits content.
Totally.
If it's totally unrelated to, if you know what Belong is about, you kind of have an idea. And if you've looked at the magazine or even the preview of the magazine, because you can get previews online, right? Like if you've spent some time in the space, you can get an idea of the kind of content we're looking for. And it's not always like, we don't do a lot of like profiles. That's just not the niche. There's other magazines, and one in specific that does that. They profile female entrepreneurs. That's not where I think our niche is. I think sharing some people's stories is really good, but that's not what I want to focus on. And I get a lot of people saying, hey, would you feature so-and-so? And no, like and maybe at some point that will be something that we want to include more, but right now, that's not where my main focus is. I like to have it more tangible as far as like, here's tips for how to run your business, whether it be financial, legal, social media sphere changing, where to buy your equipment, how to do a good flat lay, which I know everyone seems to know, but things like that, things are always changing. I asked someone recently, I'm like, I would love for someone to do a piece on how to get your whites white, because us non-photographers have a really hard time getting our whites white in photos.
Mine is a glow.
Like, yeah. And I'm like, mine end up looking yellow because I'm like manipulating them to such a large degree that like, so I'm like, can you just do a piece on how to make your whites white? Like, I think that I'm not the only one out there that has this problem. No. And granted, the photographers in the audience are probably like, but there's all the other one, all the rest of us who that's not our main game, will be like, oh, perfect. So those little things like that, even that's why I say specific, even little specific things like that can be so helpful. And with the weddings thing, what about current trends with colors or flowers or things like that, or like what's the best way to photograph, certain things at an event. There's so many different angles on how you can be specific, not only on how to throw a great party, but also how to be a professional at one, right? Like,
yes.
So I think the idea is for the issue to kind of be, a showcase of some weddings and some celebration, some parties and things that people have submitted, as well as some biz tips for the industry. And then also just some general things on like, what do you need to have a great shindig, right? Like, I don't know if you all know Kim from Tomcat Studio. She's going to do a piece for us.
Oh, yay.
She's like the ultimate party girl.
Yes, I love
so
her.
Having some stuff in there so that the non-wedding professional can still maybe get a little bit of something out of it too. It's not too specific. So I think it's going to be a really fun issue. And I'm an oddball. I still get all of my wedding magazines, and I've been married for 18 years. So I don't think that some of us just never outgrow the whole wedding thing. It's just always kind of something that it's interesting to us to see, and visually, if nothing else. I think weddings are really great.
So true. Canvas. So true. So if someone listening now they're thinking, okay, I've heard Brooke, she wants something that represents the true creative community in all of its diversiveness. She wants it to be specific. Make sure I know that, I have a topic that hasn't been included, or I have a great spin on a new topic. It's fresh. I'm going to make it as easy for her as possible. Where can they go? Where's the best place for them to submit this?
So the best place is on our website, which is belong-mag.com. Mm-hmm. There is a submit page. And on the submit page, there's a link to fill out a form that can give me a general idea. So I know other editors want the whole piece. I don't need the whole piece. So you don't have to spend time writing the whole thing up before you submit it. If you have an idea and you have some general, whether it's 3 main points or whatever, that's enough for me. Because then I can go look at, usually people have blogs and they have other things, so I can get an idea of what you're looking to do and what you've already done through that. So definitely use the link. Otherwise, I will lose it. If you try to email it to me, it's inevitably going to get lost. I can't track it real well that way because my inbox just gets really full. And then I feel like I'm being neglectful. So I encourage people, even when they send me stuff, I just turn them back around. I'm like, please go submit it through the website, because that's how I keep everything organized. It actually goes right into a Google document for me, in a spreadsheet, which is color coded as far as what's gone where. And it's much easier. So as far as organizational on the business side, like that's why, and we all have reasons we do things the way, certain ways we do them. And that's why we do it that way. For our benefit and for the contributors' benefit, so we don't lose their information.
Absolutely. And that, guys, that link, I'll put that in the show notes. So if you just want to tap your podcast player or head to shecreatesbusinesspodcast.com, you'll be able to see that link in there. So when you're ready, as Brooke said, all you have to do is kind of give her the general idea, follow the form, and she'll get back to you. So no emails on that side. This has been awesome. I'm looking forward to this issue. And I know a lot of people listening will be doing the same. I would love to. So I have a hint now. You use Google Forms. Everything's in a color-coded spreadsheet. I would love to know what other tools, tech or otherwise, you're kind of using to manage Belong and everything you have going on there.
Yeah, I don't use anything like super fancy, but I do, and we just, a friend, a creative friend that is a graphic designer, she and I just put together what we called the Belong Boss Toolbox, and it's a list of 50 resources that between the two of us, we both use in our day-to-day work. And like Google Drive is mentioned in there, but so are things like Zapier and ConvertKit and Later. Those are tools that I use on a daily basis, as far as like, and I forget that they're actually tools, right? Like they just seem like kind of normal routine, like emailing. Well, not everybody uses those things. So we use ConvertKit, we as in me. I try to use the royal we all the time. I'm not sure why. But I use ConvertKit for the email management. Later for the Instagram. I use Tailwind for Pinterest and I would love to use Tailwind for Instagram, but they don't have the link in bio feature. So yeah, I use Zapier to transfer like submissions that people have made, transfer their email information into ConvertKit. We use Squarespace as far as our website, which is fantastic for the non-techie. Like really, really great.
Love Squarespace.
Yeah, and Squarespace actually has been one of our biggest supporters, which has been fantastic. And they offer our listeners 10% off their first purchase. So there's a code on our website for that too. But yeah, so Squarespace thankfully has been kind of a godsend. I used WordPress when I was trying to blog on my own, and it's just a lot more to manage. And there's no plugins in Squarespace. You just kind of drag and drop everything. So. But yeah, like I said, it's nothing fancy, but those are the tools that kind of day to day I use. And I feel like I wouldn't be able to do Instagram without using Later. And, same with I used MailChimp, but then my audience got a lot bigger. And, as far as the sequencing and all of the bells and whistles, which I don't even know that I've only just, learned a tiny piece of with ConvertKit. The capabilities are phenomenal. I just don't know how to do them all yet. That's why I switched over, is because I know that in the long term, it's going to better serve me. But yeah, so that's kind of what I'm using. And I actually, as I'm looking, I actually have like a Post-it wall with all of my like projects, or like anytime something comes to mind that I'm like, oh, I want to do that. For example, like I want to do like an Instagram campaign with a hashtag I write it on a Post-it note and then I slap it on this one wall. And so I have like this whole wall of Post-it notes. And then as I accomplish them, I pull them off. So it's kind of like my goals at a glance. But it's kind of old school, right? Post this on a wall. People, use computers for that stuff now. But
nope, I love it. I'm looking at a project I'm doing, and it's Post-its on a whiteboard. So yep. I'm with you, girl.
Hey, we all got to do what we got to do.
That's
and
right.
Visual is really important to me, like, and it's paper. And there's something for me about, putting it up with my own hands and then taking it down and throwing it in the garbage, thinking, oh my gosh, I got that done. And there's a hole now on my wall where that Post-it was.
That's right. There's a whole
really
mental piece to this.
It totally is.
Totally.
It's great. I love it. I love to hear what other people are doing too, because it's really fun.
Yes. Well, tell me, as we wrap up here, Brooke, I would love to know kind of what's on the horizon for Belong this year. What are you excited about? Is there anything you could share with us that you, where can we find you online?
Yeah, well, you can find me online at belong-mag.com, and the blog, and you can get the magazine there. We're looking to increase our distribution this year. It increased last year 1,500%, which was just nuts. But so I'm looking forward to getting the magazine in more and more hands and making people aware of the magazine. But I'm also hoping this year there'll be some more like person to person in real life events, which I think is, the idea of Belong is community. So like we actually need to do that. But being an introvert, that's a little bit of a stretch for me. So trying to find people who can kind of come alongside and do it with me is what's really important. So I do have a couple of phone calls set up to look at scheduling some things for that. And I'm speaking at some conferences, which is fun this year, which I'm looking forward to. And yeah, it's just busy. And we have 2 special issues this year, the weddings celebrations issue, and in the fall we're doing a conferences and networking issue, which I hope will be a really great resource for women as far as finding, where they can plug in. So yeah, it's just busy. And, I'm all about growing the business. I hope that this year, is another move in the right direction financially for us. And we're able to get closer to being something that's, not only able to sustain itself, but able to sustain me and my family. So, just like every other entrepreneur would want to. So
That's right.
I'm doing what I can to make that happen. And, encouraging other people to buy the magazine, because that helps make that happen, right?
That's exactly right.
So, yeah. So those that haven't, I would love for you to check it out, whether it's the digital version or the paper version. Paper one is far superior, if you ask me. You can get it at some Barnes & Noble locations, and you can get it on our website. So, yeah. That's kind of what's going on.
That sounds like a big, exciting, amazing year. And yes, please, if you have not picked up Belong magazine right now, I can tell you, as someone who gets I pre-order every issue, you guys, okay? Please go get it. You will not regret it. They're beautiful to look at. Mine are kind of decoration in my office. I read them all the time. You will absolutely love them. So I'm sure a lot of you listening already have your copies, but if you don't yet, trust both of us when we say you will not regret it. Brooke, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been so much fun to get a peek behind the scenes of my favorite magazine. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for letting me be open and, kind of, real and raw about what behind the scenes really looks like, and, just kind of being honest with you.
You are so welcome, and thank you. We love that here, so it was perfection. Brooke, thank you so much for coming on the show and just getting so real with us and sharing what it is really like in the day of the life of an editor-in-chief of a magazine. I think that sometimes when we talked about this on the show, we really think, wow, it's so glamorous, it's so beautiful. I personally love Belong magazine, but it takes work, you guys. And Brooke is really working hard to make Belong magazine a special, special place. And I think she is well on her way. Thank you so much, Brooke, for being here. And thank you to our sponsors today and all month, the Wedding Business Academy, hosted by Jenny Krause and Kristen Kaplan. You can find them at theweddingbusinessacademy.com. It is a 6-month group coaching program where you will mastermind, learn, and grow your business in 2017. If you want to reach revenue goals, if you are looking for other women who are pushing the boundaries of their wedding business to grow and reach personal and professional goals that they've set for themselves, I think the Wedding Business Academy might be great for you. Head over to their site, sign up for their list, and be notified when they open their doors, which I believe will be today, February 15th, or tomorrow, Friday, February 16th. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week.
Thank you so much for listening to She Creates Business. Please take a minute and head to iTunes to leave an honest review so we can help more wedding pros find the show.